Okay, can somebody confirm you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Thank you. Let me begin by talking a little bit about the grading. I believe I did some grading, and I'm not sharing my screen, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I'm going to open up the grade book and it'll be easier for me to discuss the grading because it'll help remind me what the heck I did. Um, First of all, quiz 00B will look like it's not graded, but it's been graded for a long time. Let me remind you, you just click on the box and it'll give you your grade for that quiz. There's, I don't know, an error in that program, and it's frequently this way. Um, I've not graded extra credit picture yet, but I have graded the extra credit study sheet. I've also graded extra credit study 2, 3, and 4. Um, I was very late on grading that, so everybody got full credit. But let me remind you, if you got a suggestion or a comment for full credit, you'll have to uh, supply the comment. A number of you were writing in the extra credit study group, and it's unclear to me whether you were quizzing each other. For the extra credit, for full credit, you have to actually quiz each other. The logic is that if you're quizzing each other, students tend to notice somebody's weak on something, and then they'll quiz further on that topic, and then the full weakness hopefully will become apparent to the person, and so then they'll know to study that region. That's the logic there. I have all the worksheets graded. I don't remember if I only graded lecture worksheet 4B or not. Remember, if you do not know the answer, to look that one up, because this one you will not get a second chance on. And then I graded the last lab for the first time. So that'd be worksheet lab 6. You have a week until this Saturday to get that turned in for full credit if you didn't get a full credit. And I also graded the last quiz, quiz 2C, and I think I gave everyone 6 points. Let me look at this for sure. Well, is it going to open up or not? There it goes. Part of the reason is there, I had a question there where I actually changed it, and it didn't seem to foul up too many people this term, but it has in the past. And so I decided to go ahead and change it. And apparently, I never got it changed for this version of the web page, meaning I changed it for last term and the term before that, but I didn't change it for the next term, and I didn't remember that it needed to be done. And when I went looking through, I didn't see it, and so I gave you all 6 points. So that would be essentially 2 credits or 2 questions for most people who took the exam, depending on which question. Any question about the grading? I think that's it. So let me get out of the grade book and then I'll share my screen. Nope, that's not the one I want. There we go. Oh, it looks like maybe the lecture page. Yeah, good. The lecture file is made, so my computer will speed up now. Guess I'll leave that. All right. Let me remind you, you have a quiz tomorrow. Quiz 3, overlaps 5 and 6, chapter 4 and the end of chapter 3. Today we're going to start and discuss the unknown project. By starting the unknown project, you're going to be starting it after I email you the number. I'm going to email you a number. It's going to represent a species. Let me go ahead and show that now. So the unknown list is the list of the unknowns. There are a little more than 20 of them, I believe. These are gram negative. These are gram positives. These are the possible species we'll be working with for this unknown project. And I'm going to give you a number which will represent one of these species. Everything we do will be done online. And so my giving you a number to represent one of these species will be similar to my giving you a species in a test tube in the lab. And I wouldn't have the name of it, obviously, on the test tube. And so it's an unknown bacteria. And your goal for the remainder of this term, or the majority of this term, is to run various tests to try and identify the species that I've given you. The number means nothing, so don't try to assign any meaning to the number. The first test I give you will be the gram stain, so you'll split the bacteria in half into the gram negative or the gram positive. And then the next test I'll give you, which really is the test you're starting today, is the gelatin hydrolysis test. And you'll get either a positive or a negative. Negative or a positive. I'll talk about the V in a minute. So I'll give you at least those two tests. And then I'm giving you these two tests because I did the math when we first made this project online, and I realized that this project will have 100 different communications between you and me for each student for this one project. And I decided that was too much for one project. So I decided to pick the first two tests you're going to run, the gram stain and the gelatin hydrolysis test. And I'm going to send you the results in an email. And that will reduce my emails by about 40, which is still 60 emails or contacts, actually 60 contacts between the student and me for this project, which is a lot, but I think it's doable. A lot more than, say, 100 or 200 contacts. So the first two tests I've decided for you, and I'll email them to you. And then you guys will get the results and you'll take a look. Let's say it's gram positive and it's gelatin hydrolysis negative. You guys will then look at the list here and see that you've narrowed it down. All of these species down here are removed. These 4 species have been removed. And then you will find a test which will divide them up, such as PR lactose, Ag here, negative here, here, and here. And then you will choose that test. So PR lactose will be the test you're choosing. And then I'll send you the results and it'll be Ag. I'm just narrowing it down for example. And then that'll narrow down to 4 possibilities as opposed to whatever that was, 7. And then you'll look at this and you'll say, well, I don't want to do this because these are variable. These I won't separate anything, so that wouldn't be any good. Pure glucose wouldn't separate any of these 4. This might separate, but that's a variable, so I don't want to do it. I could do indole, but that's 3 and 1. So let's do methyl red. And so you ask for a methyl red test, and it's positive. That narrows it down to 2. And now you find one test which will separate these 2 out. An indole would be a good one. And let's say it's negative. And that's how you narrow it down to your species under consideration. After all the tests, it's now narrowed down to this species here. And you can do one test to confirm this species. A good one to use for that species, I just happen to know off the top of my head, is H2S. It's positive, and that would narrow it down. Actually confirm that it's Citrobacter furendi. Okay? You don't have to do the confirmation test, so this one doesn't have to be done. You can end it if you're 100% certain after this that you're correct. You can not do the confirmation test, but if you want to do a confirmation test, you do one more test. And TSI would happen to be a good one, or H2S would be a good test to do the confirmation for this one. But you could do another test. You may do further tests, but then you'll get marked down. So you can only do one confirmation test after you've identified your species. Any question about any of that? So you'll be using this table, and then the results I send to you. Let me see if I can show you the results. Actually, let's go here. You should look at these before you ask for a test and also after I get you the results. The unknown report is something you'll use. Let's scroll down further. Actually, you need to look at the instruction files, which I'm kind of talking about now. And the unknown list, that's the unknown species list that I've shown you here. And the unknown notes page I'll talk about in a little bit. And then scroll down to the unknown tests, week 5 lab unknown tests. You should look at this for when you're going to do a test and after I send the results. Like if you're going to ask for a test, you can ask for the catalase test and you can find out when you should get the results. So what you do is you obtain a 3% hydrogen peroxide, freshly ground cells, observe the two when they're mixed together. So you put a drop of hydrogen peroxide on a clean slide, put your bacteria in the drop of hydrogen peroxide, and then mix the cells. And if you see bubbles forming, then There's presence of catalase. If there's no bubbles within a minute, using the magnifying glass if needed. Actually, you can blow up the picture. And here we have cells. Let me blow that up. With bubbles here and no bubbles there. There might be one there, but that could be a colony. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, there it goes. Bubbles here, no bubbles there. That's too small. Let me talk about the Gram stain because you'll be getting that one from me. Cell shape and cellular growth arrangement. Talking about the Gram stain, what the cell shape and arrangement can be, spheres, cocci, bacilli, pleura. The main arrangements are diplo, pairs, staphylo, clusters, etc. And I'm sure this is in here someplace. Let me shrink it down. In practice, it's usually difficult to determine if gram-positive cocci are in clusters or chains when viewed in a Gram stain. This is because chains are broken apart during the smearing process, and cells tend to be brought together in artificial clumps as water evaporates from the slide as the air dries. Therefore, the take-home message is do not rely on the arrangement from the Gram stain. You can get the Gram positive and the Gram negative. You can get the cell shape from the Gram stain. But the cellular growth arrangement, if you want that, you should get that from the cellular growth arrangement test, which you will not be getting the results to unless you ask for. The cellular growth arrangement generally cannot be determined by the Gram stain. So we use a gentle procedure of making the cells, staining them, and usually we grow the cells in a liquid broth culture, and then they form their growth arrangement, and then you gently put them on a slide, usually a wet mount, to see the cells, but you can dry them and then slide them, stain them, sorry. And then look at the cells. For gram-positive diplococci, which there's a very obvious diplococci. There, right there, that looks like streptococci. But sometimes they can stick together. But majority are diplococci. And here we have gram-positive streptococci. Any question about any of that? All right. So I'll be giving you a number, and that number will represent a species. Your goal will be, after I send you the first results in a week, I'll send you the results. You look at what the results narrow it down to, and then pick out the next test. And you'll ask for it in your unknown notes page that's a part of this project. And then I'll send you all future results, not by email, but in the unknown notes pages. And you should write up your results for the email I send you in your unknown notes page, and then request which test you would like in your unknown notes page. And I'll talk a little bit more about your unknown notes page in a little bit. Let's open up the unknown instructions, which hopefully you read. This point will be worth 75 points. It's a lab project. The identification of your unknown bacteria. You can read about the rationale. You're going to pretend to isolate the species. Just streak it out, and you're going to pretend, because I'm actually sending you a number. You're just going to streak it out for colony isolation, and you're going to do that 2 times, and then take your cells after it's gone through 2 colony isolation event to set up your stock culture, and you're just going to pretend to do that. And then you'll use those cells from your stock culture to pretend to set up your test. And then you request the test in your unknown notes pages. And then after the procedures time, meaning they have to grow and inoculate for a certain time, you will then get results. I meant to mention this with the Cadley's test. You're just looking at cells freshly grown, meaning you can't use old cells, but you can use freshly grown cells. Mix it with hydrogen peroxide, and then bubbling within a minute will be Cadley's positive. After a minute, there's no bubbling, Cadley's negative. So the Cadley's test, you can get the results on the same day you request it, or generally within a day. I'll be checking the unknown notes pages at least every other day, and then sending out results after the test has inoculated for the time it should. For the Cadley's test, it would be, you'd get it immediately, meaning usually the same day you request it, assuming you have fresh cells. If you don't have fresh cells, I may require you to grow the cells for a day before you do the Cadley's test, and you're just going to pretend to grow it for a day, and then I'll send you the results. So that's for the Cadley's test. Most of the tests, though, are not immediate, like the capsule stain, the bioesculin, the citrate test. Most of these tests take 2 days of incubation or growth before you'll get the results. Some of the tests take longer, like the MR test takes 5 days before you'll get the results, because it takes 5 days of incubation or growth. And the longest is the gelatin test. Where is that? There it is, gelatin hydrolysis. It takes 7 days of growth at room temperature before you will get the results. So you have to ask for this test in 7 days, and you're not going to get the results for 7 days. And that's why you're going to start this test tonight, and then I'll send you the results in 7 days. With the gram stain, you're going to be starting it, I guess, Tuesday, the same day you'll get the results. Any question about any of that? And you'll get the results together, the gelatin test and the gram stain, hopefully Tuesday night, although it may be very late Tuesday night or early Wednesday morning. Any question about any of that?
I have a
Let's
question.
go ahead.
Do you recommend doing the longer tests like early on, or would it depend, I guess, on like a gram positive or negative test or these earlier ones? Or should we do like the quicker ones at first to just kind of knock off yes or no's?
It really depends on what your results are. So just give the best test for the results that you have and what you're looking for. I'm giving you the longest test first. That's why you're starting the gelatin hydrolysis test tonight, and then you'll get it in a week. The other test would be the MR test. You want to do the MR test, not near the end of the term because you might not be able to get it in. So you want to do it earlier, but you don't need to do that one first if it's not the best test to run. Okay, so do the best test
Okay,
that you can at first.
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, well, let's get out of here. All right, let me go back to the unknown instructions. So virtually, you're going to each isolate the species in a pure culture by just pretending to streak it out. And the process is actually shown in figure A below. Right here. Oh, where was I? So everything on this project will be done virtually online, mostly in your unknown notes pages, except for the very first email that I sent. And you're going to run different tests to identify your species. There's a catch here, and that is you have to use dichotomous logic, where you split your unknown species, meaning you have all species up here. Oop. And then you run a test like the Gram stain. Get the So we can split it into gram positive. Well, make this bigger. Ah, oh well, do it again. And gram negative. And let's say it's gram positive. And then cross out the gram negative. And then we split it into, I don't know, catalase positive, catalase negative. And let's say it's catalase positive. Scratch out the catalase negative. And then split the catalase positive into, I don't know, MR plus, MR minus. MR is methyl red. The point is you're running one test at a time, splitting it into about two possibilities, crossing one possibility out, following the other possibility to identify your unknown species. And this is called dichotomous logic, where you're splitting your possibilities by one test into two possibilities, crossing one possibility out, following the other possibility. This project must use dichotomous logic. If you do not use dichotomous logic, you will get a penalty. For using this project and identifying your species, You can use the lab textbooks, Berge's manual, it's online. You can use, if you have it, the atlas, the photographic atlas. It'll actually be very helpful. But you can also get that in the core reserve of the library. And in some places, not every place, but in my possibilities, where would be one? I think this one shows a picture. I have pictures in many, but not all of these tests online. Yep, there's one. Not the best, but blow it up. Ah, shoot. Blew it up one too many times. Let's try that again. So this has a white thing around the cells. That's not the best picture of a capsule, but that is a picture of a capsule. And you can also go pictures online. Oh, there's a good one. So these cells have a capsule around them. There's the cell, there's the capsule, and there's the background. Not all of the things have a picture here. I don't know if this one does or does not, but some of them do. Yep, here we go. Pictures. Now you can find lots of pictures in the photographic atlas for every one of these tests. All right. So you must use dichotomous logic or you'll get a penalty. You should record your daily lab notes or each day you run a test or get results. You should record it in your unknown notes pages. Let me show you where that is. Right there. Unknown notes page. It is a page. There's nothing up now because nobody's used it, but I can show you the speed grader. Everybody has it. You put a document here, and let's go to a previous term, and then I can actually show you something. I'll need to make some adjustments, pull out the student's grade so you don't see the grade. So I'm going to stop the share here, but I got to go to a previous term. Oh, what happened here? Here we go. things trying to put in there. There's a good one. Remove the grade, and now I can show you. So this is the student from my previous term, and she submitted a document. Day 1, she was given her hypothetical species. Day 6, she did the gram stain. Day 7, the pure lactose test was done. Day 8, she got results for the gelatin test and the gram stain. And you can see she submitted documents February 4th, February 10th, February 10th, February 12th, February 19th, February 26th, February 26th, and March 5th. This is the March 5th document, and you can see no further notes are being made because she's identified her unknown. The citrate test, she got the results. She asked for the citrate test. I sent her results. Here are the results of the citrate test. It's citrate negative. And she has the conclusions for today. Citrate test, citrate negative, no growth, no color change. And she's zeroed down her possible species to E. coli. And that's her conclusion for the day. You'll note that she has, for each day here, results and observations. So she previously asked for the citrate test. Where was that? Probably the day above. Future test request, she's asking for the citrate test. So she did that on day 14, that's February 18th. Conclusions for the day. Well, the results for the day, let's talk about that day. So on this day here, February 18th, day 14, she got the results of the MR test right here. And that's the observation. The results right there. The future test requests. She asked for the citrate test. And the conclusions for the day, the methyl red test was positive. You should have conclusions, observations. She's got it, results and observations. And then she's got results. And future test requests, which should be there's another name for that. I forget what that's called, but that's good enough. And you should have those 3 things generally on each day you put in here. And what she did was she has them all put together in one document, and then she could just copy this whole document, maybe from here, and then just paste this unknown notes pages in your unknown report. Because you do need to have your daily activities in your unknown report. And as long as you're formal in your unknown notes pages, you can just copy and paste it in fully into your unknown report. The unknown report will have some things that the unknown notes does not have, so you had to add to it, but you could just copy everything together. The alternative is you could also do it on each page. Day 1, day 10, she started the lactose test. Don't know about that one. Day 12 is when she got her first results. Here's the results of the gram stay. Any question about how you use the unknown notes pages? So in the unknown notes pages, you will have all of the material from your unknown project in your unknown notes pages, including you should have the results of the first one or two emails I send to you. I'll send you just one email and have your unknown number and then the results for your first two tests. So you should have the results and then you should give your interpretations. That is your conclusion. The results are observations. Your conclusions are interpretation of your observations. You should also record your daily activities in your unknown notes pages. Put your test requests in the document you submit at the bottom of the page. If you put it at the top of the page, I'll find it, but I'll look for it at the bottom of your page. If you have it in the middle of your document, I will not find it until I read through the document. And each day, I'm looking in the unknown notes pages. I'm going to be scrolling down to the bottom of your document because that's where I expect to find your test requests. If you don't have it there, you may not get it until I read through your document, and that will not happen every day or even every other day. You should record your results and conclusions in your unknown notes pages, and everything concerning the unknown project will be recorded here all in one place so that it can be easily viewed by both you and by me. One thing that should be in here, which I surprisingly don't have this in there, I have to add it in yours. So let me add that right here. You should have in your unknown notes pages the species under the consideration. All right, any question about that? Oops. Is this yours or is that the last term? Oh, this is last term. Okay, I got to add that to yours. All right, any question about your unknown notes pages? Let me state that she's requesting things in the document. I am submitting the results. There's some results for the MR test. There's the result for the citrate test. I am submitting the results in the comment section. Please try not to add a comment. Okay? If you put something in a comment, I'm just going to delete it because I don't want you to use the comments. If you need to add a comment, put it directly in your document. Any question about that? And let me go ahead and put that in your unknown notes page if it's not in here. And check the other terms. All right, any questions about any of that? Not, let's get out of this term. Oh, I have to correct her grade there. Let me share down. Stop the share. And I'll get that corrected. Oops, that's not right. Close that down now. Start the share again. There, should be seeing my screen again. So most of the things you do in this project, except for the very start when I'll send you the emails, should be done in your unknown notes pages. And if you request a test via email, I'm going to send back. I do not honor test requests in emails. I want everything together in your unknown notes pages. So make your test request in the unknown notes pages. All right, when you're all done, you're going to write up a report that details your thoughts and activities for each day of your unknown work. The report should be used 12-point font. Do not double space. Your daily description should include tests you run, the information you hope to gain from these tests, the observations you made from the tests on the previous day, and then obviously your conclusions, your interpretation of the results. You should not omit data that makes your project look better. You may include drawings, photos, tables. They can be very helpful, but they're not required. You may use the photographs that I send to you for the results. Once again, that is not required. You must include if you do include a drawing, a photo, or a table, they must be completely labeled and discuss where you got them from the body of your report. An exception would be if I send you the figure, you don't need to say where you got it from because you got it from me, but something you get from the internet, for example, you should put your web page for where you got that figure from. Same with the table. If you don't get it from me, you should put where you got it from. Each report must begin with a date, and it's actually just a date for today online, but you do not need to add the step-by-step details for each test you run. All you need to do is say, I ran the gram stain on such and such a date. You don't need to discuss the details of the steps of the gram stain. I already know the details of the gram stain. You should include your thoughts and your own words in your report. If you do receive advice from someone else or student or instructor online or AI, you should put it in quotes and say where you got it from. Otherwise, it's plagiarism. Your report will be sent to Turnitin, and it will be checked for plagiarism as well as for artificial intelligence. If ever you're using artificial intelligence, you may use it, but you should put it in quotes and say where you got it from. Otherwise, you're plagiarizing the AI. It is mandatory you include a table or a figure outlining the process you use to identify your own known organism. An example is in this table below, right here. This person split it down by gram stain, so all the species were narrowed down to the gram coccus. Here are the possibilities. They then ran the catalase test. It was catalase positive. So here are the possibilities. All of these are catalase positive. They then did the PR mannitol test. It was PR mannitol negative. They narrowed it down to 3 possibilities. PR glucose test was the next one they ran. There were 2 possibilities, these 2. And then they did the citrate test. It was citrate positive. And they narrowed it down to Micrococcus varians. So there's only 1 possibility. So this is the species that they identified. You may, excuse me here, my nose has suddenly gotten stuffed. You may run 1 additional test after you identify your unknown. Sorry about that. But you may only run 1 confirmation test after you've identified your unknown. Any question about any of that? So you must have that in a table or a figure, the steps you use for identifying your unknown. Another thing that'll be in the report that will not be in your unknown notes page, obviously the table is one thing, but you must have a microorganism paragraph discussing the microorganism that you've identified. It just needs to be 1 paragraph. Try not to make it over a half a page. You can have 2 paragraphs, but you should not make it too large, not make it too short. A description of the microorganism, including diseases it causes, modes of transmission, common sources where it's found, treatments, any other interesting information, you can give it in the microorganism paragraph. Only needs to be a paragraph or 2 in length. Don't type it over more than 1 page. And the whole document, I thought I had that in here someplace, should be about 5 pages, not including any figures or tables or the references. Someplace in here it's stating how long it should be. If it's less than 4 pages or greater than 6 pages, you will get a penalty. So try to hold it between 4 pages and 6 pages. I never have anyone going over 6 pages, but I've had a few people turn it in less than 4 pages and they get a penalty. You should have a reference section, so that will be in the report, which will not be in your unknown notes pages. And you should put the references, mainly you have to give it for the microorganism paragraph, but you can give references to any place else you need in the document. You may use any citation style you want for the unknown report, but make sure you always use the same citation style in the same paper. All right, I got an example for you. Let me show you that in a minute, but there's the table identifying the unknown. Let me remind you, plagiarism is serious, so don't plagiarize when you're writing this report, and you will get a minimum of 5% if you plagiarize. If you have a severe plagiarism, you'll get a 0 on this project, 0 points instead of 75. The grading criteria will be, you'll be graded on the, using the grading sheet, mainly on the logic of the test you perform using dichotomous logic, the completeness of the report, organization and clarity. The report should be written in your own words. If you have to include something in quotes, you may do so, but generally you should write it in your own words. And let me state at the end of this document, I've got a hypothetical example of dichotomous logic, and then some questions. This is only if you need help on understanding dichotomous logic and you want a little more work in dichotomous logic. You do not need to turn these questions in. If you have questions about dichotomous logic after reading this section, you may email me the questions. All right, let me show you how this project will be graded. Unknown report key. You'll be graded on the utilization of resources. Was any excess media used or irrelevant test performed? If there was an irrelevant test performed or you used more media than you needed, you'll get 1, then you get only 8 points out of 10. There's none, 10 out of 10. If you have 2 tests that were irrelevant or excess, you'll get 6 out of 10. Was dichotomous logic used? No excess tests, none, you get 10 out of 10. If you have 2 test requests at the same day, you have 1 excess test, 7 out of 10. 2 excess tests, 5 out of 10. Shotgun approach, that's where somebody uses a shotgun just hoping to shoot a whole bunch of shots, hoping to get the duck or something like that. That's 3 out of 10. You have no logic at all using the project, you'll get 0 out of 10. Were all relevant tests used? No tests omitted, you get 10 out of 10. If you use 1 test was omitted, you claim you got your correct species, but I noticed that you really need to run 1 more test, you get 8 out of 10. 2 tests omitted, you get 6 out of 10. Most students who omit a test are students who wait to the very end and then they run out of time to finish the project. So for this test, you should get started as soon as you can, about a week afterwards. You can't get started before a week, but about a week from today, you can start and you should get the project done as soon as you can. You'll need at least 2 weeks to get this project done. We're talking about the average student here. You'll need about 2 weeks to get this project done. If you wait until the very end of the term, you will run out of time. And those are the only students who have generally not ran a test that they should have. Were the correct species included at each step? Remember, I asked you in your unknown notes to include the species under consideration. Well, you should have that in your unknown report. If the correct species are all correct, then you get 10 out of 10. If there's 1 incorrect species anywhere in the document, it's 8 out of 10. 2 to 3 incorrect species, 6 out of 10. Over 5 incorrect species, or you're not even listing what the species are into consideration, you're only going to get 2 out of 10. Complete list of the report. All information is presented, 10 out of 10. 1 instance of missing info, 8 out of 10. 2 to 3 instances of missing information, 6 out of 10, etc. Effective, clear communication. Was the English, grammar, spelling, and punctuation all good? Excellent. Then 15 out of 15. A few errors, but logic is understood. 13 out of 15. some errors, but logic is still understood, 11 out of 15. And then some errors, but some are not understood, meaning the logic is not understood, 7 out of 15. And then lots of errors, hard to read the project, 1 out of 15. If you get the correct species identified, you get 10 out of 10. If you get the same group, but the wrong species, 7 out of 10. If you get outside the group and the gram stain is correct, you get 5 out of 10. If the gram stain is incorrect, you get 0 out of 10 for a total of 75 points. Any question about any of that? Now, obviously, plagiarism or the size of the document will get a penalty from this total point you get. Any question about the grading? All right, let me show you. I showed you these are the different tests you can run, and you should look them up when you request a test to see how long it'll be before you get the results. One of the frequent emails students get me was, I asked for the MR test and I haven't gotten the results. The MR test takes 5 days, growth and incubation. You're not going to get any results until 5 days or longer after you request the test. Because generally I'll look at the test probably Monday through Friday. I'll look at it every day, but in the weekend, I won't look at it at all on Sunday. So if I look at it on Friday, you may not get results until Monday. If you request a test on Friday after I sent out the results on Friday. So it could be longer than 5 days. All right, I've got a sample unknown report, sample journal. It goes through showing you briefly kind of how you should write your unknown report. This is actually written by an instructor way back in 2004. Let me shrink that down. Maybe I got an example here. If I do, it'll just show better. There we go. So we've got the unknown number. You do need to submit that. So when I send it to you, you got to keep it and record it by who it's from, the class. You should actually have this information, cover information, not as a cover page, but as a cover on top of your first page. I won't give you a penalty for this because this example is showing it that way. But, and then day one, when he first streaked out the species, day two, showing you the results when he streaked it out, he was given a tube which had 2 species in it, and you can see clearly 2 different species here, a white one and a bigger yellow one. Photos are helpful, but not required. You're not going to get 2 species. We decided when we were doing the unknown report online to just narrow it to 1 species. But you should go through and pretend to isolate your species by streaking it out on Augur, solid media, and going through 2 colony streaking events, meaning streaking it out 2 times before you get your stock culture. This is all going to be pretend because we're going to do everything online. I'm just sending you a number, but we're going to pretend that you streak it out and then pretend that you use the stock cells that you've created from cells that you streaked out through 2 colony isolation events. So we're pretending you're doing it in real life, but in reality, we're going to do everything online. Now let's go ahead a little bit. On this day, day 2, he's got the activities from the results the observations, oh, excuse me. Day 3, the observations from the results of the tests that were set up previous, and then he got the results today. So those are the observations he made. And then the activities he's doing on this plate this day. For you guys, the activity will be what test you're requesting. And then the observation or the conclusions or interpretations for your results for that day. The conclusion is I have the results that purple cockeye. So it appears to be the conclusion, it appears to be gram-positive cockeye when they did the gram stain. So most days you'll have an observation, activities, and then conclusions. On this day, he has no conclusions. Why does he have no conclusions? Because he has no observations on this day. But this day he has observations. Activities he ran for that day. And he should have a conclusion down here. I'll need to add that in here. He's got the conclusion right there. I can see it. Hydrogen peroxide with no bubbles. Hydrogen peroxide with bubbles. So you generally on each day you'll have observations. That will be the results of your that I send to you. You'll have your activities. That's the test you'll request, what you're doing on that day, and the observations. Sometimes you'll have in your activities, you need to do some things for like today, they're doing the catalase test. So you have to say that I added hydrogen peroxide to the cells, saw vigorous bubbling. So that's your activity. Any question about any of that? And then he's got the possible organisms under consideration. So in reality, he's narrowed it down to these three here already. He did the catalase test, so this would be an irrelevant test because they didn't narrow it down any of the three. He then did the hemolysis test and narrowed it down to Staphylococcus aureus. So he's actually identified the species. And then he did two confirmation tests. So we get a penalty here. You should only do one confirmation test after you've identified the species. You may do one, you don't have to, but you may if you want. You should not do two, you'll get a penalty if you do two or more confirmation tests after you've identified the species. Any question about that? And then he's got the paragraph about his organism and the references. You should have at least one reference for where you got the information about your organism. But like I said, if you have a picture that you got from the internet, then you should also have that detailing where you got it from here, and then put that in the references as well. Any question about that? Actually, he's got two references, sorry. All right, so that's the example. Any questions about this project? I think I've discussed everything about the project.
Just to clarify,
Oh,
so when we
go ahead.
when we go to request a new test, it's going to be in the document that we submit on the unknown notes.
Correct.
Okay, do we need to highlight the next one or just have that in the conclusion section of the notes?
You should have it at the end of the document. So actually, at the very end of the conclusion or after the conclusion.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
All right. And I've got here, building a dichotomous game plan. If you want more information about using dichotomous logic, you can also go through this document. If you're very comfortable with dichotomous logic, you do not need to go through this document. All right. If there's no further questions, I'm going to end it here. And I've got to send out, well, I guess I won't send out the information until next Tuesday. I'll send out your number next Tuesday and your results for the Grahamstein and the unknown nodes. So I guess you can pretend today that I sent out your unknown number today, and then you're streaking it out. So you can just pretend that you're doing that. And then in your unknown notes page, you can write that down. So I got my unknown number today and say you streaked out your colonies for colony isolation to get a pure culture so you can set up your stock culture, which this is all pretend. Okay. Any question about any of that? All right. There's no questions. I'm going to end it here. And I will say, I'll see you next time. Bye.